Well, like Prashant mentioned, it's a full-blown conversation on new energy, renewable energy right now. Nuvama came out with a report, and I'll just read the first line of that report that really caught our attention, which is why we've invited Jal Irani to join in. Jal, great to have you on, and thank you so much for waiting by. I'm reading the first line from your report just to get the context going. The input price crash across the value chain, as well as the PLI rollouts for modules, electrolyzers and batteries, hugely enhances economies of scale and advances the timeline for round-the-clock new energy. I mean, that's great news to hear, right? But we want to distill this down to who benefits, which companies benefits, and really what's going on behind the scenes. So opening thoughts, should we be looking at the solar module crash? I mean, just, give us the context.
Actually, the whole new energy space is an extremely large and complex and multifaceted space. So one needs to start with sort of a top-down big picture first, because there are several sort of subsectors in this. See, the new energy space, as the term suggests, is actually relatively new to the world. It's effectively an EV moment to the world. And it's very simplistically green hydrogen and green ammonia, which could become a very significant source of energy, competing with the likes of coal, gas, oil over a period of time. And the feedstock for this is really renewable energy. That's where the term green comes from. Now, there is a number of things going on here, both both globally as well as in India, and both from a regulatory perspective, both from a sort of government impetus, as well as whole structural reduction in cost for the entire industry, which is what is making this compelling. Now, at the sort of right at the upstream part of the chain, you start with module prices, because modules, I mean, in the whole chain, really, there's really no raw material. It's really, the sun, so to speak. And similarly, as you go downstream towards green hydrogen manufacturing, there's really no significant raw material costs. It's so therefore, it's really the cost of equipment. It's the capital cost which makes all the difference. And as a thumb rule in any solar project, modules was about half the cost of generating solar power, and the cost of modules has halved in the last year. So therefore, the cost of your upstream input is crashing across the board, and to that extent, making the whole chain dramatically cheaper. There are there are two elements to this, of course. There is a structural element. So module prices have been falling now, for decades, and there's a cyclical element. Both are at a confluence and playing out very well. And now you're beginning to reach thresholds where the whole new energy space starts becoming very competitive. So that's really sort of a top-down summary and context of this whole thing.
Sure. So help us understand this, Jal, that when we're talking about, let's say, the near term, and give us some timelines as well, maybe the next 2 years or 3 years, when we're talking about India's renewable energy or green energy needs, is it going to be primarily driven by solar? So therefore, obviously, we need to look at what's happening on the module side. How much will it be sort of met through, let's say, green hydrogen, which is where Reliance's big efforts also come into play? There's green ammonia as well. So what's the mix? And therefore, we're trying to distill this down to stocks and companies. Who benefits? And just elaborate on RIL's own plans, because I think they're the new Gigaplex, that's coming on stream very soon. So really, who all benefits down in the chain, and what would be the implications for RIL as well from a stock perspective?
Okay, there are too many questions in there.
Complex issue. Apologies.
Sure, no worries. So in the renewable energy space, it's really solar power which is becoming significantly cheaper. And to that extent, in the last year itself, and solar power as an input really for the whole new energy space. So in the last year or so, we've seen nearly 20 gigawatts of solar capacities in the process of being set up. To put a base number to that, sort of prior to that, the number was less than 70 gigawatt. Now, to that extent, other sources of energy are barely growing. So it's really this sort of subsegment which is powering away the entire chain. Sorry, I forgot all your several other questions. We'll have to take it one by one. Can you repeat some of them?
Yes, Jal. So from a near-term perspective, near to medium term, who are the potential beneficiaries? Any of the listed companies that we should watch out for?
So look, like my predecessor, I don't want to get into companies in detail. We can talk about Reliance though. Before I actually talk about Reliance as well, one needs to understand that there are going to be several, not only multi-year, but multi-decadal stages where different industries could come into play and benefit over a period of time. Because new energy and essentially green hydrogen goes into, firstly, replacing gray hydrogen in existing user industries. Today hydrogen is a commodity which is consumed by refineries and chemicals, mainly ammonia, fertilizers. But that is produced from coal or gas, so therefore it's called gray hydrogen. Now, as the cost of green hydrogen continues to fall, it is starting to become very competitive versus gray hydrogen for existing uses, refineries, chemicals. So therefore, and by the way, India is already the third largest consumer and producer of gray hydrogen in the world. And in fact, the forecast is that by 2030, the consumption of hydrogen in India itself will double, almost entirely from existing uses. So as green hydrogen becomes viable, you're going to the doubled capacity is going to come from green hydrogen in India itself, and the existing user industries, refining and chemicals, their cost is going to fall. And rather importantly, it's not just about the cost falling, but it is actually the whole industry turning green. Today the refining industry, the chemical industry is considered a bad word from an environment perspective. But you are poised to see a valuation re-rating as well, as not only the costs fall, but they turn green. So these are the two industries which benefit the most in the near term. And then progressively you've got, as other newer energy sources get replaced, for example, gas blending in your traditional CGD, etc., gas pipeline. Those industries will are beginning to get developed. In the longer term, the likes of steel and trucks could become an extremely large use. So to put that into context, today India's hydrogen consumption and production is 5.6 million tons. It's all gray hydrogen, right, from coal or gas. From refining and chemicals, you could add 5 million tons of green hydrogen by 2030. In the longer term, arguably 2040, 2050, you could add another 20 million tons of green hydrogen demand. So the numbers get astronomical. And to put this whole number into context, the entire global production of hydrogen, which is gray hydrogen today, is 90 million tons. So the numbers get potentially very significant as the cost keeps getting driven down further and further.
Jal, as you said, sorry, short conversation, but as you said...
Sorry, just a clarification, the pronunciation of my name is Jal.
Jal, sorry, apologies. Jal, and you said the best way to gain exposure is, actually not the best way to gain exposure is someone who is across in the value chain, right? Someone like Reliance Industries?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So
okay.
The industry is very nascent, and there are lots of companies which are attempting to do many preliminary things and jostling for a appropriate position in the pie. But the risk, nevertheless, at such a stage is astronomically high. I mean, think of this like an EV moment to the world. Other than the Tesla, among the original companies in the EV space, how many have survived? Really, almost none. And there were I'm sure, thousands, if not tens of thousands of millions who attempted it. So similarly, basically here, there are many companies which are sort of doing little things in the space and dipping their toes. But what I find strategically very significant is how Reliance is going about doing it. It has actually thought through a very long-term, fully horizontally and vertically integrated, huge economies of scale game plan, and it is already bought out or partnered with more than a dozen technologies, and it is also what differentiates Reliance among all the companies around the world is Reliance is already one of the largest producers and users of gray hydrogen. See, this is very important because hydrogen is an explosive molecule. You would have heard of a hydrogen bomb, right? It's got one of the highest calorific values. Technologies have changed and you can handle it, you can transport it. But at the same time, if you are producing at, if you're producing at the sort of a place where you're going to consume it, your benefit is the most. And as Reliance has got one of the amongst the largest refineries in the world, it's already among the largest producers and consumers of it in the world. So therefore, that's a significant advantage. And strategically, they have planned across the chain, horizontally, vertical integration, and some of the most enormous capacities. To put that into context, again, in for mostly solar power and round the clock, their target is to roll out 20 gigawatts in the next 2 years. The entire industry solar power generation today is 75 gigawatts. And I think today the largest solar power generator is 10 gigawatts or not more. So within 2 years, they'll become twice the size of the largest. And in fact, aspirationally, their plan is to become 100 gigawatts by 2030. So the numbers get enormous, right? But it is important to have those sort of numbers and scale.
Yeah, absolutely. Jal, it's a pleasure and really an education when we speak with you. And I think it requires more time, and we'll do it with more time next time. Thank you very much for joining us and sort of running us through what's happening in the new energy space, and of course a fair bit about Reliance as well. Just as a disclaimer, Reliance, of course, owns the company which operates this channel that you're watching. So just a disclaimer, FYI. But we'll get back to new energy a little later. We'll take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back with Manisha, who puts the focus on commodities in just a bit from now. Stay with us.